time, their incarcerated time inside of the fire camps, those men and women, for the most part, would prefer to be in a fire camp as opposed to in a traditional walled prison. On the other hand, it's important to note that it's in light of the alternative. And that really makes it complicated, right, to identify this as either purely voluntary or not. Ask questions about ways in which it is and is not coercive is precisely because they're choosing to be in a fire camp. In many cases, from the men and women I had a chance to interview, because the conditions are somewhat less austere and painful than in walled prisons. The food may be, in many cases, better. But again, they're choosing to do that dangerous, dirty, exhausting work of fighting wildland fires precisely as given both the better conditions, but also very much the alternative of how they would otherwise have to spend those years of their life.
Yeah, and I mean, Glenn, there are some ways in which these prisoners are having a less onerous experience of incarceration. The camps are less segregated. We understand that about 250 of the 4,000 are women. The conditions are just not as onerous as being locked down, I guess, in a prison. At the same time, you have people who are earning $1 an hour to do work that we pay professional firefighters substantially more. I don't know. I can't get my head around the ethics of it.
I don't. As someone who served 6 years in prison, the first thing I'll say is the idea of being able to work and keep yourself busy while you're there makes sense, right? It really helps your time go by. You pick up skills that you may not have otherwise. But in this situation, we shouldn't be surprised that California has found yet another way to monetize misery. The idea that we save $100 million, that's like government sleight of hand, right? You save $100 million here, but you're spending $9 billion here to lock people up. And these are the lowest level offenders. Arguably, many of these folks probably shouldn't be in the criminal justice system in the first place. But it's not just government. I mean, the perverse incentives that underlie our criminal justice system have been taken advantage of by Walmart, by many for-profit companies, Victoria's Secret, you name it. So essentially, we have a criminal justice system that people are essentially in the business of keeping people locked up because it means you have low-wage labor, people who are not going to strike, people who are not going to complain about vacation time, and so on. And so the coercion is one piece, but just overall, when you have 100 million Americans who have an arrest or criminal record on file, you have to ask yourself, what is driving that sort of criminal justice?
Yeah, but Phil, and in the case of people who are fighting forest fires, they could actually die doing this. This is sort of making people doubly expendable, meaning you don't have to pay them more than $1 an hour or $2 a day when they're not actually on the fire line. But this is deadly, potentially deadly work.
It certainly is, and I think in exchange for doing that potentially deadly work, if it is something we want prisoners to do, at the very minimum, we owe them many things. We owe them better wages than we currently pay them. We owe them better opportunities to get work for those who want it after they're released. As wildland firefighters, and for those who are not interested in that, we need better educational and vocational opportunities, not just in the camps, but in prisons in general, right, so that we can follow through on this commitment to allow people to lead better lives post-incarceration. So I think we need all of those things, and those who are doing this deadly work in the fire camp so clearly deserve all of those things and more.
And Glenn, I mean, we also need to be paying people professional wages to do this work, aside from that. But I want to ask specifically about that post-incarceration experience. Let's say you do a prison job, quote unquote, as minimally paid as it is. Does that mean that you're more likely to get that same job outside?
A couple of things. One, I think we should always go upstream and figure out where the bodies are coming from, right? Our criminal justice system was created at the intersection of civil rights gains and jobless ghettos. So these are folks who couldn't get jobs in the first place, yet once they're in prison, we're suddenly willing to get them these great jobs. Post-release, right now, we're asking President Obama to sign a ban-the-box executive order to create job opportunities for formerly incarcerated people, because there's so many people in this country who've been impacted by the criminal justice system that we've created an underclass of citizenship.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that the Clinton campaign has actually jumped on, that ban-the-box issue. All right, thank you very much to Philip Goodman in Toronto, Canada, and thank you to Glenn Martin here in New York. And up next, New York's homeless caught on camera. Are they becoming victims of a political feud between the police and the mayor?
Get a good